Michael came back down dripping, wet, and yet somehow barely clean. There was still chalk on his neck. He guzzled his tea and Madeline's and stopped back upstairs to play with his lead soldiers. John hadn't bothered descending yet, probably caught up in his books about real soldiers being played in the Wars of Kings. Wendy sat by herself in the kitchen, regarding the notebook and abandoned and untouched tea plates. Madeleines were all the rage right now, and it had been wonderful spending the afternoon trying to make them with Mother. But after the first day, they had sort of dried out and become a little tasteless. She picked up one and tentatively dripped it in her cooling tea, then nibbled its now soft edge. Much better. They almost tasted a little bit like sunshine, like warm exotic days. Her mind whirled. Suddenly she saw a ship bobbing in tropical waters and herself on a beach. It was another Neverland she remembered. This one had felt so real. The sailors, pirates were singing, and Hook was bowing from the waist, as perfect and gallant as John had been awkward and foolish. In the sunlight and open air, the captain seemed far less terrifying. Maybe it was because of the wolf at her side, the one she had befriended long ago, growling and ready to kill for her. Maybe that's why she was so brave. A pity you can't stay here, the captain was saying. The rapscallion utterly abandoned you to such a dismal grey life in London town. She had frowned. Do not talk about Peter Pan that way. You are a pirate. You make people walk the plank and burn their ships. And yet, never in my most evil and wretched moments would I have abandoned a lady like yourself in such a fate. He really has no heart, not even a black one, not like mine. I am not abandoned. He left me his shadow, she said, perhaps a little too boastfully. Hook's eyes widened at that. You have his shadow, you say? Wendy felt her lip quiver a little bit, but stilled it. A mistake? It is nothing for you, and I am fine, thank you very much. After all the stories you have told about him, all that time you devoted to enriching his legend, and this is how he treats you, by leaving you and making you to be the caretaker of his shadow, no less. Wendy in the dream didn't cry. She wouldn't, not in front of a villain like Hook. Wendy with the Madeline did. She put her head down on her arms and wept herself to sleep. Hours later, she was gently awoken by the soft touches and sweet perfume of her mother, who somehow, without actually picking up the nearly grown Wendy, managed to gather her daughter in her arms and gently led her upstairs. What in blazes is wrong with her? Mr. Darling growled. Asleep at the table like a serving wench? Shh, Mrs. Darling cooed. She gestured with her hand, scooping up the little notebook Wendy took with her everywhere. Mother, Wendy murmured, waking a little. Oh, Mother, you look so beautiful. Thank you, dear. You're so sweet. Mrs. Darling helped her out of her dress and fixed her hair, more shadowy apparition of eyelashes and perfect coif than the parent of stuff and absence. Wendy enjoyed being treated like a little girl again. She snuggled in her bed drowsily and heard her parents talk. Something's got to be done about her, Mr. Darling swore, shaking the notebook for emphasis. There's something not quite right about that girl. She's just a little blue. She needs a project, Mrs. Darling said. A boy, or maybe a charity. Charity? How about a darling charity? Mr. Darling huffed. Courtships are all very well and good, but require dress and hats and all sorts of expensive shenanigans. That was always the advantage of Wendy. She never wanted the things the other girls had. No, Mrs. Darling said with a touch of sadness. She always wanted something else. And Wendy dreamed quickly forgotten dreams of foreign seas and wolves. That's the end of that. Thank you.